Academy Award winner Anthony LaMolinara has brought to life cinema's most iconic characters. His visual effects, artistry and directing have contributed greatly to cinema in Hollywood and China. He was an animator for Pixar's first film, Toy Story, which revolutionized film animation. He then went on to create visual effects for blockbuster films such as Stuart Little, Hollow Man, Spider-Man and Spider-Man 2. Spider-Man 2, a film heavily dependent on realistic visual effects, earned him the Oscar for Best Achievement in Visual Effects at the 77th Academy Awards in 2005. LaMolinara was born in Abruzzo, Italy, and at the age of 3, he and his family migrated to the U.S. After an illustrious Hollywood career in visual effects and animation, LaMolinara would once again move to another part of the world. In 2015, he moved to China and started production as a co-director for the Chinese blockbuster Once Upon a Time. The film made over $82 million at the Chinese box office and would be a springboard for LaMolinara's directorial career in China. We spoke to LaMolinara to discuss his life around the world, his career, and his experience working in the film industry in China. Wow. Welcome to ICON.
Thank you.
You've also got your Oscar.
I think I do.
Yeah, and
I think it's in a sock in a drawer somewhere.
Well, but what is it like to be on that stage at that night and facing the whole world? What was it like?
I felt extremely relaxed, and I thought, I will do this again. But I would love, and not just to win another Oscar, but if I can, before I die, win an Oscar for China, that will really make me feel like, I came here and I did something.
You're now based actually in Beijing, in China?
I am.
Permanently?
It's my home.
Not for a project only?
Correct. In other words, I'm working, but I live here.
What takes you to Beijing, to China?
I came to China the first time in 1989. I was interested in the society, and I was very excited about what was going on. There was an energy. And look at the early 90s. I mean, there were always Chinese films showing around the world, and people were watching what was happening.
But it would be Zhang Yimou's production.
Sure. Chen Kaige.
And Chen Kaige's production.
Sure. People were watching it, and they were considered not only technically good filmmakers, but great artists as well. How they're telling the story.
Yeah.
And now, and it's not just China, is there, tell me where in any country right now there's some really great things going on in filmmaking.
Now, since you're here, you're trying to bring something new to this film industry. What are the changes that you're expecting to bring to the film industry?
I did a little meeting the other day and with some investors, and one of the producers said this is going to be an international film, and I said, I think that's a mistake. I am not making an international film. I am making a Chinese film. If people like it internationally, great. But I'm not going to make something that I think Americans or Europeans want to see. I just want to make a Chinese film about Chinese people. And ultimately, that's where I want to take all the films I make in China, is to just talk about Chinese people. And then the rest of the world, if they want to look, and if the film's good, they will look.
And you think that's going to work?
I do. I think that will work before. I really hate the idea of people suggest shooting a Chinese film in English. It's just, it's like, no. And I work on some Italian films as well. I don't want to shoot Italian films in English either. I think it's a mistake, and I think it's giving in to this idea, okay, well, if I do it in English, I can probably sell. And that's marketing. And I got a big problem with marketing.
But lots of filmmakers actually in China, they try to target, say, the international market just in,
I think it's a mistake. I think you need to have your vision. I think you need to make a good film first.
Good film means a good story.
Good story, good acting, good visuals, good editing. I think editing is something that really needs to be worked on, and the idea of bringing in your editor in the beginning and understanding how you're going to cut the film, therefore how you're going to shoot it.
Just like this, very quick shot.
Anthony LaMolinara's feature film debut in China was the romantic fantasy film Once Upon a Time, starring Chinese film star Liu Yifei. The film was released in China, Australia, the UK and the US in August 2017. Once Upon a Time is an epic fable and supernatural love story about the love between a goddess and a mortal that spans across 3 lifetimes in 3 different worlds. LaMolinara co-directed the film with renowned cinematographer Zhao Xiaoding, who has filmed many of Zhang Yimou's films, including House of Flying Daggers, in which Zhao was nominated for an Oscar. Following the success of Once Upon a Time, LaMolinara has moved on to his next Chinese film, titled You Can, You Up.
This thing I'm making right now, the idea is, got some, let's say special ops, but it's a man and a woman and another man as well. So it's 3 people, but they're not superheroes. You could maybe say hero. You can say highest level of human being, but not impossible. So everything they do is possible, but it's just very high level.
You've been working with the Hollywood, and then now you're working with the Chinese team. Any differences in the way that people work? It's also film industry, but, you know, we might work different ways, right?
I find that the pre-production planning is not, I want to use the word tight, meaning it's not so regulated and carefully planned, yes, for the shoot. And then sometimes on the set it becomes like jazz. And if you're going to play jazz...
All improvisations.
Everybody better know each other very well. If you play jazz, everybody can change speed and change direction very, very well together. But if you plan for visual effects and then you change the idea when you go into the set, it's not going to work out. It's not going to work out. And the stunt team needs to work with the visual effects and the editor and the director, and everybody needs to be together on that same page to make it come out very well. And I think that's one major difference when it comes to visual effects. So I've seen people say, all right, we're just going to, when we get there, we'll decide what we're going to do. And I don't think that's it's certainly not effective economically. It's not good for the budget. It's better to make a plan. When you get there, if you want to change it, because you see, this will work better this way, great. Especially if you're doing visual effects. You go in with a plan, you know specifically what you want to do, and you try to do it. Because otherwise, you're going to end up with a mess, and it's going to be hard to fix. And always, always, always shoot without visual effects if possible. Never use it as a crutch. And I see that a lot too, where, okay, just put them on green screen. Put them on green screen, put them on green screen, and it's not a good thing to do.
So when you do the film, when you do the special effects, say the story says, you know, when you were doing the Spider-Man 2 and you were trying to perfect every detail, even only a few days before the final release, and even when the producer said it's okay, it's already good enough, it's very good, but he's happy, but it seems you were not. So at that moment, were you seeking to try to achieve the artistic perfection?
I've never brought a film in over budget or over schedule. But if there is a shot, for example, and I don't think it's good enough, and I have allotted, let's say, 2 weeks for this shot to be done, and I've only got a week and a half into it, if I think it's great, I'll stop. But if it's not great, and I haven't gone over budget, and I haven't gone over time, why not spend a few more days to make that really look good? Because in the end, people, producers will always complain and say, oh, you don't need to spend this money. Oh, you don't need to do that. You don't need to this. Save money. It's going to help us. But you know what? You don't get credit for that at the end. Nobody can. You're not going to heaven because you saved money. You'll go to heaven because the film was successful and made money in the end. And sometimes a good producer is someone who knows where to spend the money. And often people don't. And there'll be, sometimes you have to lay it out. You have to spend. And it may hurt, but you have to spend in the right place. When they spend in the wrong place and then get cheap in the place where they should be spending money, that's when you start making mistakes. And not everybody knows that. And you know, people have to learn. And right now, a lot of things are being done, a lot of things are in turmoil, and so many people are going into the film business. And to tell you the truth, there aren't enough experienced producers to fill those jobs. And a lot of people are being thrown into that.
That's right.
And what's happening is a lot of the producers are not experienced. And so they are getting thrown into this situation, trial by fire, where they're not sure about what they're doing. And some will turn out to be brilliant. And a lot of times, you know, people, maybe they're not experienced, and I can see they got a good mind. That's really what it's about, a good mind, a clear, concise, logical thinker who can deal with the chaos, but can also keep track, put it together, knows where to spend the money, and has experience about filmmaking and a feeling of where, and is a partner with the director.
Now,
a good producer is half director too, I think.
yeah. When you are doing your job with all these directing and special effects, animation, are you more into technology or more into art?
Most people seem to be limited, or let me put it this way, they limit themselves. So if I know the technological aspect of things, they immediately think, well, that's as far as you can go. Like, you couldn't also know how to use the stuff to make a film. You can only know this part of it. Like, if I tell you I know how to make guitar strings, well, but I certainly couldn't be a guitarist, you know, because I know how to make the strings. I'm a technical guy. And I get that a lot from people. Oh, you're a technical guy. But that's not true. I always tell people, if you hire me for my knowledge of visual effects, what you're hiring me for is my eyes, first and foremost. Because you can teach a pigeon to hit the right button on a computer to get food. So anybody can read a book. Anybody can learn that if I press this button, this happens on the computer. Anybody can do that. Anybody can learn to play the piano. When I hit this note that says on the paper and you memorize, you start associating that note with this key. You can do that. But to have that nuance of touch on the piano, that's what it's about. That's where the artist comes in. I've always felt that it was very important to know all the technology. Movie cameras, I know how to take them apart and put them back together. You know, every little screw, every little part of the motor, all the gears, I know how to take those apart, put them back together. I worked at Panavision, that's how I started out, and I just walked in and said, guys, I'll work for free, I'll clean the cases, you know. And I don't see that a lot with kids today. Kids today, they go to film school, they get out and they say, can I have a job for $200,000? And I don't see that drive. And the kids that I teach, they'll say, why don't you just tell us the thing we need to know to make great films? I said, oh, really? You think there's a thing you need to know? There's a lot of stuff you need to know. And you know how you're going to find it out? Go to work. Get to work.
You have to do it. Feel
Absolutely.
it. Experience it.
Again and again and again and again. And then you may not have the sensitivity in your mind, in your heart, if you want to say heart, but your emotions, you may not be sensitive enough to be a great artist. But even if you do have that sensitivity and you have all the foundation to be a great artist, you got to work.
Culture Express. See the world in color.
I bought my first movie camera, when I was a kid. I speared fish and sold them to, I would dive. I'd go to the restaurant and say, what kind of fish do you want tonight? And, because I wasn't like taking a net full of fish and hoping I got the right one. And I'd say, what's on the menu? What do you want to serve tonight? How many do you want? And then I'd say, this is my price, and, per pound. And then I'd go and dive and spear the fish, and I knew where they were in the bay, in the ocean. And take a sell to the restaurant, and that's how I bought my first camera.
So
sure.
you knew you were interested in, what, doing videos, films, or what?
I mean, as far back as I can remember, certainly from the age of 3, I remember this theater I would go into and watch films, and I remember the red velvet curtains in the entranceway, and like probably most people that do this, you feel this magic when you see the cinema. I mean, look at the film Cinema Paradiso.
And that was in Italy, back in Italy.
Yeah. And so you do this, and something hits you, and you just know it.
Apart from the social influence, you went to the theater, and then you went to the cinema, and then you got the impression you wanted to do film. What about the family side? I mean, did you also get some influence from your, say, parents or any family members?
My father he did a lot of different things, and also, I think, encouraged me to, let's say, expand your horizons. Don't limit yourself to one thing, because he was a musician. He was a jazz musician.
But he's also a NASA engineer.
Yes.
As a full-time job. Yeah.
Right. But, well, he did the music first, and then he stopped that, and this is with the family. So when I complain about working too much, so when we were kids, he stopped. We came to the United States. He stopped everything. Took a job driving a forklift, moving wood, and he worked from 7 in the morning to 7 at night every day, then went to university. Now, probably wasn't good for the marriage, but he put his nose down and worked, and he got a degree, and he went to work at NASA, and he worked on the design of the space shuttle. And also the Space Lab, which is in the Smithsonian.
So he left his interest behind to support the family, but he had that.
Yeah, I mean, would he have rather played music the rest of his life? I don't know that for sure. But I think he enjoyed the job, and I found it interesting. I mean, as a kid, I would go there, and he worked in what was called a physiological optics department, and they had all kinds of different cameras and lenses, and I learned a lot from being around that as well. And a lot of it relates to optical effects, which were a good foundation for knowing visual effects and how to do that as well. But I think one of the biggest things my father did for me was make me aware of the effect of music. And that's another thing in China that I hope to push a little more, because sometimes I see somewhat generic music. I don't often hear soundtracks that I think, wow, that's going to stay with me. You know, like Dr. Zhivago. You know, people went out and bought that soundtrack and brought it home and would listen to it.
Let's put film aside, because
Okay.
I know you also do a lot of other things.
Yeah.
You know, you do composing,
Yeah.
you do sculpting, you do painting. Other than the art side, you do diving, you do parachuting, you fly.
I haven't done it.
planes,
I got 400 jumps and I...
400 jumps.
Yeah, and then I stopped because it's just, to tell you the truth, the worst thing about skydiving is the time you spend at the drop zone, we call it, waiting to go up. That drives me crazy. And if I had my own private plane that I could just walk out and say, okay, take me up, I might still do it, but I just got tired of waiting.
Yeah, what I'm saying is, it seems you have a lot of interest. You're there to experience almost everything.
Don't you?
I don't know. I mean, at least I haven't done any skydiving, parachuting, diving, whatever. You know.
Life is so many possibilities and things to learn and things to experience. I mean, we're here to just eat it all. And I'm trying to give that to any of my children and to any of my friends and always push them. And, you know, I'll have to say that's another thing that my father really pushed me. Just develop yourself in all aspects, athletically, mentally, emotionally. Go experience life.
It's great that you're passionate about almost everything, but it's rather difficult for most of us to be that passionate and crazy about
I'm
things.
a very difficult person. And I think anybody who does anything is a difficult person to others.
So that...
Because they demand a high standard. And if you don't demand a high standard, then you're going to live in a world that has nothing exceptional.
And you think that's what it takes to be, say, a good filmmaker, an artist?
Oh, come on. If you put all those people together, it's craziness every day. It's craziness. And I don't like a lot of screaming on set. I think that's unnecessary most of the time, but sometimes you do to get things moving. And because if you don't, it won't happen.
What's the craziest thing you've done while you were still doing a project?
I don't know. There's too many...
Too many crazy things?
I guess, I don't know. I mean,
what about that one, the one that you jumped from a, I don't know, 30, 40 meter high balcony into the swimming pool?
We were in Mexico and everybody was kind of down, and I said, guys, come on, it's not that bad. You know, and sometimes you have to, even if things are going terribly, you have to move things around. And I wanted to change their mood, and I said, I'm going to go jump out of that window into the pool.
And that's it, you did it.
And they, of course, they forgot about it, and by the time I got up there, I screamed at them, and they laughed, and then I jumped, and I was lucky enough to hit the pool. I didn't know if I would.
Exactly. And how deep that pool was, that was also important.
Yeah, I guess so. I touched bottom, but not that hard.
Wow. With all those experiences in Hollywood and everything, with success in the film industry in Hollywood, what do you expect to achieve again, say, in this new world, in China?
One of the first things I want to do in China is start a school program. This is not so related to what you're saying, but it is something I do want to do. I want to start school programs and push the schools to teach all children in China to swim. Because so many kids don't know how to swim, and it's bad because people die every year for that needlessly. And children should just know how to swim. They should know how to swim. And I hate it every time I see a story about somebody drowning. People go in the water and they get afraid, and that's when they drown. But if you know the currents and you understand that that's a natural thing, then they won't drop.
So it seems, in other words, actually, kids are sometimes overprotected, and they probably need to know more about the nature.
Anyway.
Yeah. So
but as far as film,
yes.
as far as film goes, I really hope, and I hope I can do something to help change the fact that there hasn't been a great animated film in China for a long, long time, since, let's say, 1961. And the biggest problem, and I'm happy to say this, is the producers won't give the crew time to make the film. You can build an animated company. Your first film is going to take at least 2 years, maybe longer. But then you can start leapfrogging. You know, you have one starts halfway through, and then another one starts maybe a third of the way through, and then you can start releasing 1 or 2 films a year. But you've got to give the artists, and the artists are here, the talent's here, the talent's anywhere.
In China.
Of course. Of course. I'm a member of a sculpture group. And these guys, there's 144 people in this group. And a good friend of mine, Ma Tian, he's doing this giant sculpture on a mountainside right now. It's amazing. But they're all top level. They're as good as anybody from the Renaissance. I mean, it's just great talent. The problem is, when you put that talent into something like an animated film, the producers don't understand the time it takes to make that film.
Because of the market is driving to
because the
crazy.
Producers don't understand that way of making a film. They want a fast buck. They want the work done in 1 year. And you do not develop an animated film and make it in 1 year. Even the best people in the world that have a well-running machine like Pixar, they can't do it. It's too short of a time. And the Chinese producers need to give people that time to make the film, and then they'll see the profits. I do teach at university. I hope I can touch at least one student and give them the foundation to make good films. And to make those films about Chinese and the way the Chinese really just go about everyday life. And when you see a film, like, what's the story about? Whatever it is, you know, a story like Feng Xiaogong's Aftershock is a beautiful concept, and it's a great story. And it's about Chinese people. It's not about the emperor's battle. It's not about Kung Fu. It's about Chinese people. And I would like to see more of that, because what I see exported all the time, and I'm not saying people shouldn't make big emperor films with big battles and all Kung Fu all the time, but I think in America, that's all they get. And so what are the Chinese about? Do Chinese walk around all the time with a sword? Do Chinese walk around all the time doing Kung Fu? No, they don't. So let's see something more about Chinese people, relationship, what are families like in China, this kind of thing. And I want to support that more.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good luck, and good luck with the swimming school project, and good luck with the next Oscar with the Chinese project.
Yeah, if I win an Oscar with China, I will run back and forth across the stage with a Chinese flag.
Right. Looking forward to that. Thank you very much,
All right.
sir.
Thank you.
For your time
Thank you.
and for your stories.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.